I'm announcing the United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine. This is a move that has strong bipartisan support in the Congress and, I believe, in the country. Americans have rallied to support their Ukrainian people and made it clear we will not be part of subsidizing Putin's war. We made this decision in close consultation with our allies and our partners around the world, particularly in Europe, because a united response to Putin's aggression has been my overriding focus, to keep all NATO and all of the EU and our allies totally united. We're moving forward with this ban, understanding that many of our European allies and partners may not be in a position to join us. The United States produces far more oil domestically than all the European countries combined. In fact, we're a net exporter of energy. So we can take this step when others cannot. But we're working closely with Europe and our partners to develop a long-term strategy to reduce their dependence on Russian energy as well.
Okay, so America has banned Russian oil. So I thought we should have a little discussion about what that means. Now, according to this, in 2021, the US imported an average of 209,000 barrels per day of crude oil and 500,000 barrels per day of other petroleum products from Russia, according to the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturer Trade Association. This represented 3% of US crude oil imports and 1% of the total crude oil processed by US refineries. By contrast, the US imported 61% of its crude oil from Canada, 10% from Mexico, and 6% from Saudi Arabia in the same year. And just like Biden said, the United States has more oil than all the European countries combined, and they're a net exporter, so in theory, they would have nothing to worry about. Well, not quite, because if they're an exporter, that means it's already going somewhere, isn't it? As you can see from this, the United States imports more crude oil than it exports, and it exports more petroleum products than it imports, which makes sense because they'd probably be refining a lot of the crude oil into petroleum products. And as Biden also said,
understanding that many of our European allies and partners may not be in a position to join us.
Now let's have a look at why Europe might not be in a position to join America in banning Russian oil. Now we have a look at this chart of where Russia's crude oil is exported to. A large amount, about half of it goes to Europe. And so if we have a look at the EU's imports, this one being from 2019, source Eurostat, Russia made up 26.9, so 27% of the crude oil imports into the EU. And then if we have a look at the EU's imports of petroleum oil, 2020, a quarter of it's from Russia, and about the same for 2021. And then natural gas. EU imports 2019, 41.1% was from Russia. And then 2020, it was 43.9%. And then 2021, 46.8%. Of the EU's natural gas came from Russia. And finally, the EU's imports of coal from 2019, 46.7% from Russia. And oh hey, look, there's Australia, of course. And now I'd just like to quickly show you something Joe Biden said back in January of 2022 that I found particularly concerning.
Everybody talks about how Russia has control over the energy supply that Europe absorbs. Well, guess what? That money that they earn from that makes about 45% of their economy. I don't see that as a one-way street. They go ahead and cut it off. It's like my mother used to say, you're biting your nose off to spite your face. It's not like they have all these wonderful choices out there.
Okay, the reason I found that particularly concerning was it obviously shows that before Russia even invaded Ukraine, the White House was aware of how dependent Europe is on Russia for their fuel sources, and that the possibility of Russia cutting off Europe has obviously been discussed. And the best he has to say was, yeah, well, like my mum used to say, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. And what do you mean you don't see it as a one-way street? Who would? It obviously is a two-way street where Russia would need the income and the European countries would need the gas. So obviously months ago, there was brief discussion about this possibility. Do you think they'll use that time to somewhat prepare, come up with a strategy? It doesn't seem like it.
The United States has banned oil imports from Russia over the war in Ukraine. Within a day, the ripple effect is now starting to show. Oil prices are at a 14-year high. Cost of oil per barrel has reached a whopping $140 a barrel. And Russia is now threatening retaliation.
Now, where was Biden hoping to get oil from now that he's banned it from Russia? So let's go through the list of potential options. You've got Saudi Arabia and the UAE aren't a big fan of Biden because he said he wasn't going to continue giving them weapons and support them against the Houthi rebels. That's what he said, but he is still doing all that. They're still getting weapons from America, and it seems like the only time the Prince of Saudi Arabia didn't get his way was when America actually released documents about the brutal murder of that journalist. They didn't answer calls from America, but you know who they did talk to? Putin, that's right. And so what's another potential option? Well, they haven't ruled out Iranian oil, just a few issues there, like the nuclear deal and the fact that the last president of the United States killed one of the top commanders, and just how America bans oil from a country because they invaded another country, so to then replace that oil, they go ask both sides of a proxy war in Yemen. And another option, also tricky, and like Iran, America has sanctioned them, but another path America was going to go down, Venezuela. They released a couple of American prisoners after speaking to the US. That could be a good sign. But their oil industry isn't what it used to be. And on the topic of Venezuela, I gotta say, I find it very interesting, quite amusing, seeing Americans say that the solution to the fuel price problems they're experiencing is pretty much nationalizing the oil industry. But yeah, I'll wrap this video up here. We'll have to see how this all plays out, but all I can say for sure at the moment is fuel prices probably aren't going down anytime soon. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe.